What's going on, operators, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing an optic review. This time we're going to be taking a look at the T10 X Pro from Cyelee Optics. Before we get any further in this video, Cyelee was kind enough to send over this product free of charge for us to take a look at. No money changed hands, however, and there was no contract of what we should or shouldn't say, so my opinions are going to be blunt, honest, to the point, and as unbiased as possible, as usual. Now, there's a lot of features that come in this, which was actually quite surprising given its price point. So we're going to go over some of those features. We're going to look at what comes in the box, then of course I'll give you my final impressions after whether you should pick one of these up or not. All right, so that being said, let's go ahead and get started with taking a look at what comes in the box, and then we'll take a look at the actual product, which is actually already mounted to our 590A1 from Mossberg, which is a shotgun for those of you who don't know. And yeah, we'll take a look at how it looks like, what are the features on it, and kind of what you should expect. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so let's have a look at what's in the box. And before we do that, I just thought it was quite funny that I saw this, which says fully submersible, which, yeah, don't do that to your optic, especially when it's attached to your gun. Not a good idea. I have a feeling they were just using a slightly different vernacular or vocabulary, trying to explain the fact that there's some semblance of water resistance or waterproofness to this thing, which we will talk about as we get into the features of this thing in just a little bit. But yeah, fully submersible, probably not the best thing to put on there, because admittedly, someone's probably going to be doing something dumb like that with their optic, and then they're going to send it to you for RMA, and you're going to be like, well, we didn't mean, you know, go swimming with it. Right? So yeah, I feel like it's more of a translation issue, which is okay, but I just kind of found that a little humorous. So the first thing that you get out of the box here, as we kind of go through the contents quickly, is just a very quick little reference card. This is a little 3-page card that just kind of folds up. And you know what? I like this. I don't like the idea of reading a Bible when I open up one of these products. For one, I'm a little experienced with some of this stuff, and there's a lot of similarity between products, so I kind of get an idea, okay, maybe you got to hold the button to turn it on, or, you know, maybe you got to hold the button to switch modes or something like that, which this definitely does. But the fact that they included something that's so neat and concise, just to give you the basic information, that's quite nice. I like the idea of that. The next thing here is that you do get a little chamois. This one is a microfiber cloth, quite a little one, but to be honest, you don't really need a big one. The lenses on this are quite small. It is a red dot after all, so just nice that they include that as well. Next up is going to be a combination Allen wrench. I think we've got, it's either a hex or a Torx on one end. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. They're quite small and hard to see, but flathead on the other, and that flathead is going to be for adjusting your turrets, and then the other side is going to be for mounting your optic to the various rails that you may have. All right, one of the last things here, this is the second to last thing that we have, is going to be this fairly low profile mount. And the nice thing about this is that you actually get two of these. You get one of the low profile ones, and you get one for an absolute co-witness, which is actually installed right on the product. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. This is nice if you don't need an absolute co-witness, meaning if you don't want to elevate your optic so that you can look into your iron sights as a backup in case something happens to your optic, your primary optic. If you don't want that, then you can just do this. And now there's no parallax, or, you know, there's infinite eye relief and stuff on this, so it doesn't really matter. Even the height overboard doesn't really matter, because again, it's just a red dot. You're going to be fairly close quarters anyway, but having it a little bit lower can't hurt, and especially if you don't need that absolute co-witness, it's definitely nice that they include this. Now, this actually feels like an aluminum. It's either like a 6061 or a 6062, maybe aluminum, and it is, at least it looks like it's anodized, so that's quite nice. Kind of matches the rest of the look. I'm going to put the box down here because we only have one more piece left, and that is going to be this. So these are going to be your caps. Now, if I had to nitpick, really, to be honest, I think the caps would be the only thing that I'm a little, I'm not going to say upset, but a little disappointed about. Understandably, this is a much lower price product compared to a lot of the other ones that are available in the market from vendors and distributors and stuff that we all know that have been around for a very long time. However, these don't cost a lot, right? I do a lot of 3D printing, and I can tell you, you know, something like this at a TPU would cost pennies to print, maybe a couple of dimes or something like that, right? So if I can do it for that cost, I'm sure a company that is mass producing optics can probably do it for even less. So having something that is a little bit nicer would have been nicer. But yeah, maybe it's just a personal preference. For myself, I do prefer something a little bit more rigid, something I can flip up. I actually really liked the ones on Riton, which my buddy's got a Riton red dot, and at first I really didn't like it, but I realized that it was actually kind of cool because they had clear caps that flipped up. So you could theoretically look through them and still see your target while they were also protecting the lenses. So it's actually quite a nice touch, and maybe that's something that Cyelee should try, or at the very least, just put in some higher quality feeling hard rubber or hard plastic caps that flip up, and I think that would add a little bit more value and not cost a lot more money. As far as these go though, they do the job. I just don't like the idea that they kind of tend to bend and warp under pressure. They're definitely stretchy enough, and I think it's definitely good enough to do the job. But if you are somebody that swears by having caps on your optics all the time, then yeah, that might be a consideration for you. You might get a little bit of dust and debris if they're going to be flexing like that, and that's why I think that the hard plastic is probably the better way to go. Anyway, I've spent enough time talking about this. Let's go ahead and take the 590 out of the safe here, and we'll talk about some of the features of the T10 X Pro. Okay, so finally, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the hardware here and the specs as well. So there it is, mounted on the Mossberg 590A1, and as always, I just want to make sure that we are nice and clear, so we've got nothing in the chamber or the mag tube or even the shell caddy here, which actually 3D printed. I think that looks kind of sharp. But in any case, we're not here to look at the shotgun. If you do want to see a review of the shotgun, we did that already. You can check it out in the link in the description or the top right hand corner of your screen. But yeah, this is a pretty handsome optic, and it looks really, really nice on this. The anodization of this aluminum really melds nicely with the paint job, with the blued finish of the shotgun. So I quite like that. Everything looks very nice. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the physical features of the optic. Obviously, it's very compact. It looks really nice. And then on the other side, of course, here we've got our Cyelee logo. So yeah, very clean looking optic. Let's go ahead and start from the bottom here, because this is what we were talking about before. This is one of the two mounts that comes with it. So this one is the absolute co-witness, and the way that you would use that, and this is actually mounted from the factory, so this is actually how it comes out of the box, is that you would, of course, shoulder your firearm and you would look through the optic as usual. And if anything were to happen to your optic, like for example, you have a low battery or something like that and you're not getting any red dot in your optic, what this mount allows you to do is to co-witness and look under the optic through your iron sights. So that is a really nice backup to have. Of course, the battery here is slated to run for about 50,000 hours, at least that's what it is according to Cyelee's website. But should you not change your battery in time and run out of battery, at least you'll always have access to your backup iron sights. So that's really nice. Now, speaking of the battery, you've got a side-mounted battery here, so you just unscrew this and you've got a standard coin cell in here. It's a CR2032, and that's nice. It's a very universal battery. You can get them pretty much anywhere in large quantities, and I've usually got anywhere between 20 and 30 of these in a box in the utility closet, just in case I need to swap them out, because pretty much everything I use uses this battery. So it's nice that it's universal like that. Now we have our turrets on the side, of course, and the top of the unit here. These will unscrew, and you do have a nice little flathead in here that you can put in to unscrew. And speaking of flatheads, I realized that I made a mistake. So on the little Allen key that you get, it's actually both of them have some kind of either a hex or a Torx on them. There is no flathead. So you can use maybe a penny or a dime or something like that to open these up, or if you have like a little screwdriver that you carry with you, you can do that. But in any case, these are covered with these little caps, and these caps are aluminum as well. That's a nice touch, very fine threads on them, and then that is what the turret looks like. So I have adjusted the turrets on here. They're quite clicky. The turrets are a little small, but again, it's a red dot, so doesn't really matter all that much. Now, the tricky part is just getting it back on there without cross-threading it. So we'll see if we can actually do that. There we go. So yeah. Ultimately, you could probably even leave the caps off if you really wanted to. I don't see how they would really come loose or anything like that. But in any case, you've got caps on there, which is good. The rest of the optic looks very handsome. So the front, I don't want to point the firearm too much. I want to be careful where I'm pointing this, but the front does have sort of a nice orangish metallic finish to the lens. It looks really nice. Your ocular lens is going to be nice and clear. Though I should mention that when you look through this, you are going to see a very slight kind of a bluish green hue to the image. And I don't know, that might affect some of you. It's not perfectly clear, but a lot of optics are like that. So whether this is something that might affect you or not, at least it's something that I figured I'd let you know. Like I said before, we have our turrets here. So we've got our windage right there, our elevation right there. And you can also use a similar coin like a penny or a dime or something like that to adjust those. They're quite clicky and tactile, which is good. And then on the other side, there is not much going on here. We've just got the Cyelee logo. And that's pretty much it. Now we do have the buttons on the top as well. So we have two buttons here. We have the up and down, and these are multifunction buttons as well. So of course they'll adjust your brightness. And on this particular optic, you do have 10 different brightness settings. So you have 8 for daytime and you have 2 for nighttime. Now I'm not 100% sure who's going out there with a 598-1 in the middle of the Canadian wilderness with a shotgun like this, in an optic like this in the nighttime. But this is a shotgun that has been used by various military forces and police forces and stuff like that, as well as it's a great tactical shotgun. So perhaps for those people, having those 2 nighttime settings would work quite well. And according to Cyelee's website, those are compatible with night vision optics. I can't test that because unfortunately I don't have any night vision, but if there's any companies that make that listening, hey, by all means, drop me a line and we'll see if we can review them. But that being said, you do have 10 in total. So you've got 8 for daytime, as I said, 2 for nighttime. And then you do have an auto off in here as well, which they call a shake awake system, which means that the red dot will turn itself off after a number of minutes of inactivity. And then once you pick up your shotgun again and you're ready to go, it's going to turn right back on for you so that you have your red dot on. You don't have to fumble with the buttons or anything like that, which I think is a great feature, especially since a lot of people use shotguns like this for home defense, right? It's short range, it's plenty of power. You want to be able to have that red dot with you and available anytime that you need it. Of course, it's great also for the range. If you want to put your firearm down for a little bit, have a chat with your buddy, maybe go have a smoke or grab a drink from the car or something like that and then come back. You don't have to worry about touching the optic. You just pick up your firearm and it's ready to go. So that's quite nice too. Other than that, it is also IPX7 waterproof according to Cyelee and their website, and that's probably why we saw the fully submersible on the box, which again, do not submerge this, even though it is technically waterproof. But I'm sure what they meant is, this is IPX, at least according to them, certified to the point where if you get caught in a shower, if you get caught any kind of water splashing on this or anything like that, or maybe perhaps even if you just drop it in water, it'll be fine. So yeah, I'm not going to test that because I'd rather actually just keep and use this. But according to Cyelee, that is the spec. Now, as for the actual dot itself, it's red in color. You don't have a choice of red or green here. So for some of you, that might be a deal breaker. For others, it might be absolutely fine. I actually prefer red over green. I find that that's easier to see. But depending on you and whether maybe you have different conditions with your eyes where certain colors are easier to see, or whether maybe you're colorblind to certain colors, then yeah, that might be an option for you to consider as well. And since we're talking about the dot here, it is a 2 MOA dot with a 30 MOA ring. So you do have some adjustments by holding one of the buttons here. You can go ahead and reference the manual on how to do that. And it'll switch between either just the dot, just the ring, or both of them, which is really quite nice. And then as for the turrets, you have a half MOA adjustment between all of the clicks that you're going to go through to sight this thing in. All right, fellas, so finally, let's just talk about my first impressions and my final thoughts on the Cyelee Optics T10 X Pro. Overall, I think it's a very nice, robust little package at a very reasonable price. And if you've been around this channel for long enough, then you'll know very well that we can't talk about the price here because there's a 47.7% chance that your loved one is hanging over top of your shoulder wondering, what is he going to buy this week? But if you need to know, it's about half the price of a Ruger 1022 carbine, which is very competitive to some of the other optics that are available here, which are made more by North American distributors or manufacturers, but also brought in from the same region that this one is made. So that being said, you're getting a very good price for a very decent spec sheet. Now, we have a fully aluminum construction. We have 2 different bases that it comes with to mount on. You have a low profile and an absolute cobiness base, which is really nice. You've got some very clicky and tactile, although quite small turrets that are very solid. Now, I've taken this thing on a very short shoot, sort of a certification shoot, I guess you could call it, where I was doing some sign-offs for my shotgun, and I didn't experience any kind of issues with it coming off of 0, which was great. If it can handle 12 gauge, it can pretty much handle just about anything else, so that's really quite nice. And if you have any problems, it seems like Cyelee is quite good at actually dealing with their customers, because I did have an issue with the screws being too short on the RMR version of their pistol sight that I reviewed earlier, and they were kind enough to get in touch with me very quickly and ship me those screws also very quickly. So if you do have any issues, at least you're dealing with a pretty good company here. Now, what else is important here? Well, 10 brightness levels, that's always nice to see. It remains to be seen whether the night vision, as they claim, the 2 lowest brightness levels, is actually fully compatible with night vision, and what kind of night vision, because there's various types, there's active, there's passive, and so on. So I don't have the hardware to test that, unfortunately, so I can't tell you, but if any of you do, please let me know your experience down below. Now, also, you do have a side-mounted battery, so that's really quite nice. CR2032, very easy to find. I usually get about 30 of them, so having a universal battery is definitely a plus for me, and being able to have a fairly well-built optic is definitely important. One of my gripes, as you may have heard before, is those caps that they include. They're kind of junk, honestly. I would have preferred something that's more solid rubber or solid plastic that flip up. That would have been a nice addition. Probably wouldn't have cost them that much more. It would have added to the extra value perception of the product. So I think that could have been something that they could have changed, maybe for future products. That being said, overall, I really like this sight. It's very affordable, the features are pretty solid, and the support is pretty good. So really, I would definitely recommend this if you wanted to get yourself one. I will leave the link to their website down below and more details about the product in our Discord, which is also linked down below. And that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and for making it all the way until the end of the video. I really appreciate that. I hope that you found some value out of this one, or some of our other videos perhaps. And if you have, you can help us out in a big way by just remembering to subscribe with notifications turned on, like the video, share it with your friends like many of you already have done, and believe me, I'm grateful for that. And that really does help us to defeat the predatory censorship efforts of YouTube as far as firearms videos go. It also helps us to grow our community so that we can have a greater impact on helping others and growing the greater gun culture here in Canada and perhaps even around the world. Now, that being said, if you'd like to go a little bit above and beyond, become a VIP that directly supports us while also giving you some really cool perks. If VIP is not your thing and you'd rather just get some merch, you can do that also. Link down below our Canadian operator website, canadianoperator.ca. And of course, there's also the super thanks button if you just want to send us a coffee and help us out that way. That being said, thank you so very much for your support, no matter how you choose to do it. We're very grateful for that, and we'll hope to see you in the next video. We'll be reviewing the R9 from Sterling Arms. That'll be very exciting. We've also got the custom 2022 build coming up, which we're going to take out to the range. That'll be a great time. And we've got some Discovery optics in the pipeline as well. So a lot of cool stuff coming up, and hope to see you there. But that being said, thanks again for sticking around. Thanks for watching. See you next time. And until then, happy shooting.